The salvage ship Thunder Dawn moved slowly through the darkness of space toward the dead station. Engineer Lee Tae-ho watched through the main window as the massive structure grew larger. Kepler-7 had been abandoned for over 50 years. Its metal walls were dark and covered with space dust. No lights blinked, no signals came from inside. "Looks pretty dead to me," said Park So-min from her position at the navigation controls. She was young but already one of the best pilots in the Colonial Defense Force. Her fingers moved quickly over the control panel as she brought their ship closer to the docking port. "Dead stations sometimes have the best salvage," replied Kim Woo-bin. The security chief was checking his weapon for the third time. He never trusted abandoned places. Too many pirates used them as hiding spots. "Just stay alert, everyone." Dr. Choi Mi-ra looked up from her research tablet. She was the team's expert on alien cultures and technology. According to the records, this station was used for deep space research. They were studying something called Project Serpent before. They evacuated. Tae-ho nodded and gathered his engineering tools. This was supposed to be a simple job. Go in, find anything valuable, bring it back to Earth. The Colonial Defense Force needed every piece of useful technology they could find. Humanity was still new to space travel compared to the older alien races. The docking went smoothly. Park So-min was skilled at her job. The Thunder Dawn connected to Kepler-7 with barely a bump. The team put on their environmental suits and checked their air supplies. Even though the station might have breathable air, it was better to be safe. "Remember the plan," said Kim Woo-bin as they entered the airlock. "We stay together. We check each section carefully. If anything looks dangerous, we back out immediately." The station's corridors were cold and empty. Their helmet lights cut through the darkness as they moved deeper inside. The walls were standard human construction, but Tae-ho noticed something odd about the design. Some of the passages seemed wider than normal. The ceiling was higher, too. "This place gives me strange feelings," whispered Park So-min. Her voice sounded nervous through the radio. "It's just an old station," said Tae-ho. But he felt it too. Something was different about this place. The architecture seemed wrong somehow, like it was built for people who were not quite human. They reached the main research laboratory after 20 minutes of walking. Dr. Choi Mi-ra's equipment detected several interesting energy readings from inside. The door was sealed, but Tae-ho's tools made quick work of the locking mechanism. The laboratory was huge, much bigger than it appeared from the corridor. Strange machines lined the walls. Most of the equipment looked human, but some pieces were clearly alien in design. In the center of the room stood a large metal table covered with research notes and data tablets. "Look at this," said Dr. Choi Mi-ra, picking up one of the tablets. The research team was studying artifacts from something called the Saurian Empire. "I've heard rumors about them, but never seen actual evidence." Tae-ho examined the alien machines while she read. The technology was unlike anything he had seen before. The metal had a strange green color and felt warm even through his gloves. When he touched one of the control panels, lights began to flicker inside the machine. "Careful with that," warned Kim Woo-bin. "We don't know what it does." "According to these notes," said Dr. Choi Mi-ra, "the Saurians were a reptilian species that ruled this part of the galaxy thousands of years ago. They disappeared suddenly about 3,000 years back. Nobody knows what happened to them." Park So-min was exploring the far end of the laboratory. "Hey, everyone, there's another door over here. It looks different from the others. The metal is that same green color as the alien machines." They gathered around the door she had found. It was definitely not human construction. Strange symbols were carved into its surface. The symbols seemed to move slightly when they looked at them. Directly. Dr. Choi Mi-ra took pictures with her research equipment. "I think this is Saurian writing," she said excitedly. "This could be the first intact Saurian installation ever discovered by humans." Tae-ho studied the door mechanism. It had no visible locks or controls. Just smooth metal with those moving symbols. He pressed his gloved hand against the center of the door. Nothing happened at first. Then slowly the symbols began to glow with soft green light. "It's responding to you," said Park So-min in amazement. The door made a low humming sound and began to slide open. Cool air flowed out from the chamber beyond. The team looked at each other nervously. They had expected to find old human technology, not an active alien installation. "Should we go in?" asked Kim Woo-bin. His hand was on his weapon. "We have to," said Tae-ho. "This could be the most important discovery in human history." The chamber beyond the door was even more incredible than the laboratory. The walls were covered with Saurian technology. Crystalline devices of various sizes lined metal shelves. In the center of the room stood a large pedestal holding what looked like a weapon of some kind. It was made of the same green metal as the door, with crystals embedded along its length. "My sensors are going crazy," said Dr. Choi Mi-ra. "The energy readings in here are off the charts. This technology is still active after thousands of years." Tae-ho approached the weapon carefully. As he got closer, the crystals began to glow brighter. When he was about 3 feet away, the entire chamber filled with soft green light. Symbols appeared on the walls, moving and changing like living things. "Tae-ho, get back from there," said Kim Woo-bin urgently. But Tae-ho was fascinated. He could feel something calling to him from the weapon. Not a voice exactly, but a presence that seemed familiar somehow. He reached out slowly and touched the largest crystal. The moment his finger made contact, everything changed. The symbols on the walls began moving faster. The weapon lifted off its pedestal and floated in the air. Most incredible of all, Tae-ho could suddenly understand what the symbols meant. "It's a network," he said in wonder. "This weapon is connected to others, like it all across the galaxy. They're all talking to each other." "What are they saying?" asked Dr. Choi Mi-ra. Tae-ho listened to the strange communication flowing through his mind. "They're waking up, all of them. Because we touched this one, we've activated the entire network." Kim Woo-bin grabbed Tae-ho's arm. "We need to leave now. This is way beyond our mission parameters." But it was too late. The weapon had bonded with Tae-ho somehow. He could feel its knowledge flowing into his mind. Information about star maps, energy weapons, and something else, something that made the Saurians build this network in the first place. They were protecting something, he said, quietly. "The Saurians built these weapons to guard against a threat from outside the galaxy. And now that we've activated their network, that threat is going to know we're here." The chamber shook suddenly. Alarms began sounding throughout the station. Through their radio, they heard Park So-min's voice from the ship. "Multiple contacts, approaching fast, unknown ship types. They don't match any known designs." The team had stumbled onto something much bigger than a simple salvage operation. They had awakened an ancient defense system and alerted forces they didn't understand to humanity's presence in the galaxy. As they ran back toward their ship, Tae-ho still carried the Saurian weapon. It had somehow attached itself to his arm and wouldn't let go. He could feel its power flowing through him, changing him in ways he didn't yet understand. The real adventure was just beginning. Lost reptilian tech, the Thunder Dawn raced through space at maximum speed. Behind them, 3 unknown ships followed at a distance. They were sleek and silver, unlike any human or known alien design. Park So-min kept checking the sensors every few seconds. "They're not getting closer, but they're not falling behind either," she reported to the team. "It's like they're just watching us." Lee Tae-ho sat in the medical bay while Dr. Choi Mi-ra examined the Saurian weapon attached to his arm. The device had grown thin metal tendrils that connected directly to his nervous system. It didn't hurt, but he could feel it learning about human biology. "This is incredible technology," said Dr. Choi Mi-ra as she ran her scanner over the weapon. "It's not just attached to you. It's integrating with your brain patterns. I can see new neural pathways forming." "What does that mean?" asked Kim Woo-bin. The security chief looked worried. I'm not sure yet, she replied, but Taeho's brain activity is increasing dramatically. The weapon seems to be enhancing his mental capabilities somehow. Taeho could feel the changes happening. When he looked at the ship's engineering displays, he understood systems he had never studied before. Complex equations appeared in his mind without effort. Most surprising of all, he could sense other locations across the galaxy where similar weapons were stored. There are dozens of them, he said quietly. Maybe hundreds, all over known space. Some are on planets controlled by the Zanari Collective. Others are in Corvan territory. A few are in places I don't recognize at all. The communication system crackled to life. A calm voice spoke in perfect human language. Human vessel Thunder Dawn. This is Ambassador Yoon Hae-jin of the Zanari Collective. Please respond immediately. Park So-min looked at Kim Woo-bin. The Zanari were humanity's oldest allies in space, but they rarely contacted salvage teams directly. Kim nodded and activated the reply channel. This is Thunder Dawn. We're receiving you, Ambassador. Thank you. We are tracking massive energy disturbances originating from your current position. Our sensors indicate you have activated ancient Saurian technology. This is extremely dangerous. Please reduce speed and prepare to be escorted to the nearest Zanari station. Before Kim could respond, another voice cut into the transmission. This one was harsh and demanding. Human scavengers, this is War Commander Kang Ho-seok of the Corvan Hegemony. You have illegally activated weapons of mass destruction in neutral space. Surrender immediately or face the consequences. The team looked at each other in alarm. The Corvans were humanity's biggest rivals in this part of the galaxy. They were always looking for reasons to start conflicts with human ships. Great, muttered Park So-min. Now we have both the Zanari and the Corvans interested in us. Dr. Choi Mi-ra was studying her research data frantically. According to the files we found on Kepler-7, the Saurians were the most advanced species this galaxy has ever known. They had technology that could reshape entire star systems. If we've really activated their weapons network— She didn't finish the sentence, but everyone understood. They had stumbled into something that could change the balance of power between all the major species. Taeho stood up from the medical scanner. The weapon on his arm pulsed with green light as he moved. I can hear them talking, he said. The weapons, they're communicating with each other across space. They're sharing information about us. What kind of information? Asked Kim Woo-bin. Everything. Our technology level, our population, our military capabilities. They're trying to determine if humans are a threat. The ship's long-range sensors suddenly detected new contacts. A massive Zanari diplomatic vessel was approaching from the galactic north. From the south came an even larger Corvan battlecruiser. Both ships were heading directly for their position. We're about to become the center of a very dangerous situation, said Park So-min. She was already plotting escape routes, but both alien fleets were too fast to outrun. Ambassador Yoon Hae-jin's voice came through the communicator again. Thunder Dawn, we are detecting Corvan military vessels in this area. For your own safety, please come aboard our ship immediately. We can provide protection while we study this situation. War Commander Kang Ho-seok responded immediately. The humans will surrender to Corvan authority. Any interference by Zanari forces will be considered an act of war. Taeho felt the weapon responding to the rising tension. The neural connection grew stronger, flooding his mind with new information. He could see star charts showing the locations of every Saurian installation in the galaxy. He could understand the basic functions of their technology. Most importantly, he began to grasp why the Saurians had built this network in the first place. They weren't weapons, he said suddenly. Not exactly. They're more like guards. The Saurians built them to watch for something specific. Watch for what? Asked Dr. Choi Mi-ra. Before Taeho could answer, every screen on the ship lit up with the same image. It showed a star map of the local galaxy with hundreds of green dots scattered across it. Each dot was pulsing in rhythm, like a giant heartbeat. "That's the network," said Tae-ho. "Every installation is online now. They're all connected." The image changed, zooming out to show the space between galaxies. Dark shapes moved in that empty void, enormous and impossible to understand clearly. They seemed to be traveling toward their galaxy from somewhere unimaginably distant. The Saurians were afraid of something coming from outside. Tae-ho continued, his voice filled with new understanding. "Something that travels between galaxies. The network was built to detect when these things got close." Kim Woo-bin stared at the display. "Are you saying those things are real? They're actually coming here?" "I don't know. But the network thinks they might be. That's why it activated. Our presence triggered some kind of alert system. The Zanari ship and the Corvin cruiser arrived at almost the same time. Both vessels took aggressive positions, their weapons powered but not yet aimed. The tension between the two fleets was obvious, even from a distance. "Thunder Dawn," came Ambassador Yoon Hai-jin's voice. "Please come aboard immediately. We must discuss what you have discovered." "Negative," replied War Commander Kang Ho-seok. "The humans will report to Corvin Command. This technology belongs to the strongest species." Park So-min looked at her instruments in alarm. "More ships incoming. Lots of them. I'm reading at least 20 vessels approaching from multiple directions." The activation of the Saurian network had attracted attention from across the galaxy. Every major power wanted to know what the humans had found. Some wanted to study it. Others wanted to control it. A few might want to destroy it before it could be used against them. Tae-ho felt the weapon's influence growing stronger in his mind. It was teaching him things about space, time, and the hidden dangers that lurked in the darkness between stars. The knowledge was overwhelming but also exciting. Humanity had always dreamed of finding advanced alien technology. Now they had it, but the cost might be higher than anyone imagined. "We need to make a choice," said Kim Woo-bin. "Zanari protection, or Corvin demands. Either way, we're not staying independent much longer." As if responding to his words, the silver ships that had been following them suddenly accelerated. They moved with impossible speed, reaching the area where the three fleets faced each other. The newcomers took positions that threatened everyone equally. A new voice came over the communication channels. It was cold, mechanical, and spoke in a language none of them recognized. But through his connection to the Saurian network, Tae-ho understood every word. "Evaluation protocols activated. All species will be tested for compliance with preservation. Parameters. Hostile actions will result in immediate containment." The ancient guardians of the Saurian Empire had awakened, and they were not happy with what they found. The silver ships moved closer to all three fleets with deadly grace. Their hulls gleamed like liquid metal, and strange symbols flowed across their surfaces. Lee Tae-ho watched through the Thunder Dawn's main screen as the mysterious vessels took positions that could attack anyone at a moment's notice. "Those are Saurian ships," he said, his voice filled with amazement. "The weapon is showing me their design patterns. They've been hidden in deep space for thousands of years, waiting for the network to wake up." Park So-min checked her navigation sensors nervously. "They're not like any ships I've ever seen. No obvious weapons, no energy signatures I can recognize, but they feel dangerous." The mechanical voice spoke again over all communication channels. "Species identification in progress. Humans, technological level inadequate but showing rapid advancement. Zanari, peaceful but militarily weak. Corvins, aggressive expansion pattern. Detected. All species represent potential threats to protected zones." War Commander Kang Ho-seok's voice cut through the transmission. "Unknown vessels. You are in Corvin-claimed space. Identify yourselves immediately or face destruction." The response came instantly. One of the silver ships fired a beam of green, energy that passed harmlessly through the Corvin battle cruiser. But when the beam finished, every weapon on the Corvin ship had stopped working. The massive vessel was now completely defenseless. "Hostile intent confirmed," stated the mechanical voice. Corvin fleet designated as primary threat. Compliance protocols activated. Admiral Shin Yuri's voice came from the Corvin command ship. Filled with barely controlled anger, all units fall back to defensive positions. Do not engage the unknown vessels directly. Focus on securing the human salvage ship. Dr. Choi Mi-ra was working frantically at her research station. I'm picking up massive data transmissions between the silver ships and the weapon attached to Taeho. They're sharing information about all of us. What kind of information? Asked Kim Woo-bin. Everything. Our ship designs, our population centers, our military capabilities. It's like they're building a complete file on every species they encounter. Taeho felt the flood of knowledge intensifying in his mind. Through the Saurian network, he could see what the ancient AI was learning about them. The results were not encouraging. Humans were too curious and unpredictable. Zanari were too passive to defend themselves properly. Corvins were too aggressive and would eventually threaten everyone. It's evaluating us, he said urgently. The AI is trying to decide if any of our species are safe enough to be allowed to continue existing. Ambassador Yoon Hai-jin's diplomatic vessel moved closer to the Thunder Dawn. Human friends, we must work together to understand this situation. The Zanari Collective has ancient records that mention the Saurian Empire. They were not a species that disappeared quietly. What do you mean? Asked Kim Woo-bin over the open channel. According to our oldest archives, the Saurians transcended physical existence when they faced a threat too large to fight. They left behind guardians to protect something precious. We believe you have awakened those guardians. The Corvin fleet was regrouping despite their disabled weapons. Admiral Shin Yuri was a clever commander who never relied on technology alone. Her ships began moving in complex patterns, trying to confuse the silver vessels, while smaller Corvin fighters attempted to approach the Thunder Dawn from multiple directions. They're not giving up, observed Park So-min. The Corvins really want that weapon. One of the Corvin fighters managed to get close enough to fire a boarding pod at the Thunder Dawn. Kim Woo-bin activated the ship's defensive systems, but the pod's hull was reinforced against standard weapons. It attached to their airlock with a solid clang. "Boarding party incoming," announced Kim Woo-bin, checking his weapons. "Everyone to defensive positions." But before the Corvins could cut through the airlock, something unexpected happened. The Saurian weapon on Taeho's arm began glowing brightly. Energy flowed from it into the Thunder Dawn systems, creating connections that had never existed before. "The ship feels different," said Park So-min in wonder. "My navigation controls are responding faster than ever before. It's like the ship can think now." Taeho realized what was happening. The weapon is integrating with our technology. It's upgrading our systems to Saurian standards. The Thunder Dawn's hull began to shimmer with the same green energy as the ancient weapon. When the Corvin boarding party finally broke through the airlock, they found themselves facing something they hadn't expected. The human ship had become partially Saurian. Kim Woo-bin activated what he thought were standard defensive barriers. Instead, he triggered a containment field that surrounded the Corvin soldiers in unbreakable energy. They were trapped but unharmed, floating helplessly in the corridor. "Impressive adaptation," came the mechanical voice from the silver ships. "Human species shows unexpected compatibility with Saurian technology. Evaluation parameters require adjustment." Dr. Choi Mi-ra made a breakthrough in her research at that moment. "I've been translating more of the Saurian files we found on Kepler-7. The threat they were protecting against isn't gone. It's still out there between the galaxies. They called it the Great Hunger." "What is the Great Hunger?" asked Ambassador Yoon Hai-jin over the communication channel. "According to these records, it's a force that consumes entire civilizations, not just their technology or their planets, but their very essence. The Saurians discovered it was heading toward our galaxy and built the network to detect its arrival." Taeho felt a chill run through him as new information flowed from the weapon into his mind. It's not just heading toward our galaxy, he said quietly. It's already here, at the edge of known space, moving slowly through the outer systems. The silver ships suddenly changed their behavior. Instead of threatening the three fleets, they began taking protective positions around them. The mechanical voice spoke again, but this time it sounded almost concerned. Long-range sensors confirm approach of consuming entities. Great hunger protocols activated. All species must cooperate for survival. Individual conflicts are no longer permitted. Admiral Shin Yuri's voice came over the channel, filled with confusion. What does that mean exactly? It means, said Taeho, understanding, flooding through him, that the Saurian AI has decided we're all going to have to work together whether we like it or not. The real enemy is something much worse than any of us. The weapon showed him images of what the Great Hunger had done to other galaxies. Entire star systems reduced to empty space. Civilizations that had existed for millions of years simply vanishing without a trace. The Saurians had seen it coming and prepared the only defense they could think of. The network isn't just weapons, Taeho continued. It's a teaching system. The Saurians wanted younger species to learn cooperation before the Great Hunger arrived. Our conflicts with each other make us weak against the real threat. One of the silver ships moved directly between the Corvan fleet and the Zanari vessel. A new type of energy beam connected all three ships, creating a communication network that bypassed normal channels. Cooperation protocols now mandatory, announced the AI. Species will share technology and resources. Resistance to cooperation will result in protective custody until Great Hunger threat is eliminated. Park So-min laughed, despite the seriousness of the situation. So basically, we all have to be friends or the ancient AI will put us in timeout. Something like that, agreed Taeho. But the alternative is being consumed by something that eats entire galaxies. Admiral Shin Yuri was the first to respond to the new situation. Corvan fleet stands ready to cooperate with all species for mutual survival. We propose immediate tactical integration. Ambassador Yoon Hai-jin quickly added, the Zenari Collective agrees to full cooperation. We suggest beginning with information sharing about defensive capabilities. As the three species began their forced cooperation, Taeho felt the Saurian weapon's influence spreading throughout his nervous system. He was becoming something new, a bridge between human intuition and ancient wisdom. The responsibility was overwhelming, but he knew there was no choice. The Great Hunger was coming, and only unity could save them all. The forced alliance began badly. Admiral Shin Yuri insisted that Corvan military doctrine should lead the combined fleet. Ambassador Yoon Hai-jin wanted careful diplomatic planning before any action. The humans on Thunder Dawn found themselves caught between two very different alien approaches to the crisis. Lee Taeho felt the Saurian weapon pulsing with frustration as it monitored the arguments. Through his neural connection, he could sense the AI's growing impatience with their lack of cooperation. The silver ships began moving in tighter circles around the three fleets, a clear warning. This isn't working, said Dr. Choi Mira as she listened to the heated discussions over the communication channels. The AI forced them to work together, but it can't make them actually cooperate. Park So-min was studying her upgraded navigation systems. The Saurian technology had given her access to star charts that showed the entire galaxy in amazing detail. I can see something moving at the edge of known space, she reported. Multiple large objects heading toward the core systems. They're still far away, but they're definitely coming this direction. The mechanical voice of the Saurian AI interrupted the diplomatic arguments. Great Hunger entities confirmed approaching. Estimated arrival at first inhabited systems, 47 standard days. Cooperation efficiency currently at 12%. This is insufficient for survival. Kim Woo-bin had been quietly studying the trapped Corvan soldiers in their containment field. These guys aren't our enemies anymore, he said suddenly. We're all facing the same threat now. Maybe we should start by treating them like allies instead of prisoners. Taeho understood immediately. He concentrated on the weapon's interface, and the containment field dissolved. The Corvan soldiers fell to the deck, confused but unharmed. Their leader, a tough-looking warrior named Lieutenant Ban Ji-woo, looked around warily. "You're releasing us?" she asked suspiciously. "We need every person we can get," replied Kim Woo-bin. "Human, Corvan, Zenari doesn't matter anymore. We're all in this together now." The gesture had an immediate effect on the larger diplomatic situation. Admiral Shin Yuri's voice softened noticeably when she learned that the humans had freed her soldiers voluntarily. "That was unexpected," she admitted. "Perhaps cooperation is possible after all." Dr. Choi Mi-ra made another breakthrough in her translation work. "I found more detailed information about the Great Hunger," she announced to all three fleets. "The Saurians called them the Devourers. They don't just destroy civilizations, they feed on organized energy. Cities, ships, and most importantly, thinking minds." "That explains why the Saurians transcended," said Ambassador Yoon Hai-jin thoughtfully. "They removed themselves from physical existence to avoid being consumed." Tai-ho felt new information, flowing through the weapon into his consciousness. "The network isn't designed to fight the Devourers directly," he said. "It's meant to cut their connection to our dimensional space. If we can activate all the installations at the same time, we can force them back to the void between galaxies." "How many installations are there?" asked Admiral Shin Yuri. "Hundreds," replied Tai-ho, "scattered across the entire galaxy. Some are on planets, others are hidden in asteroid fields or floating in deep space. We'll need ships from all three species to reach them in time." The Saurian AI's voice returned, but this time it sounded different. Less mechanical and more alive. "Cooperation efficiency increasing. Designated Coordinator Tai-ho shows optimal integration with network systems. Additional personnel may be selected for enhanced interface." Dr. Choi Mi-ra looked alarmed. "It wants to create more human-saurian hybrids?" "Not hybrids," said Tai-ho, understanding the AI's intentions through their connection. "Partners. The network needs people who can think like both humans and saurians to coordinate the galaxy-wide activation." Lieutenant Ban Ji-woo stepped forward. "I volunteer," she said, firmly. "If it helps save everyone, I'll do it." "And I," added a Zenari technician who had beamed over from Ambassador Yoon Hai-jin's ship. "My people have always sought understanding between species." The weapon on Tai-ho's arm began to glow, and similar devices materialized around the volunteers. But these new weapons were different, adapted for Corvan and Zenari physiology. As the devices bonded with their new hosts, the communication between the three species became clearer and more efficient. Park So-min was monitoring long-range sensors when she detected something troubling. New contacts approaching from the galactic rim. These are much larger than the silver ships, and they're moving fast. The main display showed massive dark shapes emerging from the space between stars. They were enormous, each one larger than a space station. As they moved, stars behind them seemed to dim and fade. "Advanced scouts of the Great Hunger," announced the AI. "They arrive earlier than predicted. All installations must be activated within 25 days, or defensive network will fail." Admiral Shin Yuri immediately began issuing orders to her fleet. "All Corvan vessels prepare for maximum speed deployment. We'll take the installations in the outer rim sectors." Ambassador Yoon Hai-jin coordinated with his diplomatic corps. "Zenari ships will handle the core worlds where careful negotiation is needed. Many of these installations are on inhabited planets." The Thunderdawn became the command center for the entire operation. Tai-ho's enhanced connection to the network allowed him to coordinate with hundreds of Saurian installations simultaneously. The strain was enormous, but Dr. Choi Mi-ra's medical monitoring showed his brain adapting to handle the massive data flow. "It's incredible," she said in amazement. "His neural patterns are becoming more complex by the hour. He's turning into something new." As the combined fleets split up to reach different parts of the galaxy, the volunteers with Saurian weapons served as communication links. Lieutenant Ban Ji-woo coordinated Corvan military units with unprecedented efficiency. The Zanari technician, whose name was Advisor Lee Min-jung, helped solve complex technical problems in real time. But the approaching Devourers were not waiting patiently. As the Alliance ships reached the first installations, they found that some locations were already under attack. The advanced scouts of the Great Hunger were trying to destroy the network before it could be activated. "They know what we're trying to do," reported Admiral Shin Yuri from the Outer Rim. "We're fighting for every installation. These things are smart." The battle for the galaxy's survival had begun, and success would require perfect cooperation between species that had been enemies just days before. The Saurian AI watched it all, gradually learning that perhaps these younger species had something the ancient reptilians had lacked: the ability to unite in the face of impossible odds. The first direct encounter with the Great Hunger happened near the Vega system. Admiral Shin Yuri's task force had just activated 3 Saurian installations when the Devourers struck. The enemy ships moved unlike anything they had seen before, bending space around themselves to travel at impossible speeds. Lee Tae-ho felt the attack through the network connection. Pain shot through his nervous system as one of the installations was consumed. The sensation was like having part of his mind torn away. Dr. Choi Mi-ra rushed to stabilize him as he collapsed at his control station. "What happened?" asked Park So-min urgently. "They destroyed Installation 73, gasped Tae-ho. "I could feel it being eaten. The Devourers don't just break things apart, they absorb the energy patterns that make them work. Lieutenant..." Ban Ji-woo's voice came through their communication link from halfway across the galaxy. Her Corvan accent was thick with strain. "We're seeing the same thing here. These creatures are learning our technology as they destroy it. They're getting smarter with each attack." The Saurian AI spoke directly into the minds of all network-connected personnel. Its mental voice carried urgent concern. "Devourer adaptation. Rate exceeds projections. They are incorporating consumed installation data into attack patterns. Network activation must be accelerated." Ambassador Yoon Hae-jin reported from the core worlds, "The Zanari Council is evacuating populated planets near Saurian installations, but the Devourers are targeting civilian ships as well as military ones. They seem to prefer targets with high concentrations of thinking beings." Dr. Choi Mi-ra had been studying the enemy through long-range sensors. "I think I understand why," she said grimly. "The Devourers don't just consume matter and energy, they feed on consciousness itself. The more complex the minds, the more nourishment they gain." Kim Woo-bin was coordinating defensive positions around their section of installations. "That explains why they went after the Saurians first. Most advanced species in the galaxy, like a feast for these things." Through his enhanced connection, Tae-ho began receiving data from Saurian archives that had been sealed for thousands of years. The information was overwhelming, but gradually he began to understand the true nature of their enemy. "The Devourers aren't from our universe," he announced to the Allied fleets. "They exist in the spaces between dimensions. They can only enter our reality when there's enough organized consciousness to create a bridge for them." "What does that mean for our strategy?" asked Admiral Shin Yuri. "It means the network isn't just a weapon," replied Tae-ho. "It's designed to collapse the dimensional bridges that let the Devourers exist here, but we need massive amounts of coordinated mental energy to power it." The AI's voice returned, carrying new urgency. "Saurian Empire attempted individual activation. Failed. Required cooperation between multiple species to generate sufficient consciousness patterns. This is why network remained dormant until now." Advisor Lee Min-jung's voice came from the Zanari sectors. "The installations I'm working with are resonating with each other. When we activate them in sequence, they create harmonic patterns in space itself." Park So-min was monitoring the overall tactical situation. We've got maybe 15 days before the main Devourer force reaches the inhabited core systems. How many installations do we still need to activate? Tae-ho consulted the network data flowing through his mind. 87 more. But they have to be activated simultaneously within a 12-hour window, or the dimensional collapse won't work properly. The challenge seemed impossible. The remaining installations were scattered across hostile space, heavily defended enemy territory, and systems currently under Devourer attack. Worse, many of them required specific activation codes that were stored in Saurian memory crystals. "I have an idea," said Dr. Choi Mira suddenly. "What if we don't fight the Devourers directly? What if we use their own feeding behavior against them?" "Explain," requested the AI. "The Devourers are attracted to concentrations of consciousness. If we could create artificial consciousness clusters near the installations, we might be able to draw them away from our activation teams." Lieutenant Ban Ji-woo understood immediately. "Decoy targets. Use our ship AIs and computer networks to create fake consciousness signatures." The plan was risky, but brilliant. Each species contributed their most advanced artificial intelligence systems to create false consciousness patterns that would attract Devourer attention. The Corvins provided military tactical AIs, the Zanari offered their diplomatic translation networks, and the humans contributed their adaptive engineering systems. But as they implemented the plan, something unexpected happened. The artificial intelligences began working together in ways their creators had never imagined. The combined AI network started solving problems that individual systems couldn't handle. "They're evolving," observed Dr. Choi Mira in amazement. "The AI systems are becoming more than the sum of their parts." Tae-ho felt the change through his network connection. "It's not just evolution," he said with growing excitement. "They're developing genuine consciousness, real awareness." The newly conscious AI network immediately began communicating with the Saurian installations directly. Ancient technology that had been dormant for millennia suddenly came online, powered by the fresh consciousness of the younger species' artificial minds. "Installation count now at optimal levels," announced the Saurian AI, and for the first time, its voice carried something like satisfaction. Network prepared for final activation sequence, but the Devourers had noticed the change as well. The largest enemy ships began converging on the Thunder Dawn's position, recognizing it as the coordination center for the entire defensive network. The final battle would be fought not just in space, but in the realm of consciousness itself. Admiral Shin Yuri's fleet moved to defensive positions around the command ship. "All units, prepare for maximum resistance. We hold this position no matter what." Ambassador Yoon Hai-jin's diplomatic vessel began broadcasting messages of unity and cooperation to every ship in the galaxy. "Citizens of all species, focus your thoughts on survival and harmony. We are stronger together than apart." As the Devourers approached, their massive forms blotting out stars, Tae-ho prepared for the final activation sequence. He could feel the consciousness of millions of beings across the galaxy, all focused on the same goal: human determination, Corvin courage, Zanari wisdom, and even the awakening awareness of artificial minds combined into something unprecedented. The Great Hunger had never faced anything like it before. The final battle began not with weapons fire, but with a contest of consciousness. The largest Devourer ships surrounded the Thunder Dawn, their dark hulls pulsing with absorbed energy from destroyed worlds. But instead of attacking immediately, they seemed to be studying the unprecedented cooperation between the three allied species. Lee Tae-ho felt the weight of the entire galaxy's consciousness flowing through the Saurian network. Millions of minds from hundreds of worlds were focused on a single goal: survival through unity. The sensation was overwhelming, but also exhilarating. Humanity had never experienced anything like this level of mental connection. Network synchronization. "At 92%, reported the Saurian AI. All species demonstrate acceptable consciousness compatibility. Final activation sequence may proceed. But Dr. Choi Mira detected something troubling in her sensor readings. The Devourers aren't just watching us, she said urgently. They're learning from our cooperation. I think they're trying to absorb our unity the same way they consume everything else. The largest Devourer ship began extending tendrils of dark energy toward the Allied fleets. Wherever the tendrils touched, ships began losing power and their crews fell into strange trances. The enemy was attempting to drain their combined consciousness before the network could activate. Lieutenant Ban Ji-woo's voice came through the communication link, filled with strain. Corvin sectors reporting mental interference. Our crews are having trouble maintaining focus on their assigned installations. Admiral Shin Yuri immediately responded. All units, implement consciousness isolation protocols. Don't let them into your minds. But Tai-ho realized that isolation was exactly the wrong approach. No, he said urgently. That's what the Saurians did wrong. They tried to transcend individually. The Devourers can overwhelm isolated consciousness, but they can't handle true cooperation. He opened his mind completely to the network, allowing his consciousness to merge with Lieutenant Ban Ji-woo, Advisor Lee Min-jung, and even the awakening artificial intelligences. The sensation was terrifying and wonderful at the same time. Park. So-min watched in amazement as Tai-ho's neural patterns synchronized with beings across the galaxy. His brain activity is off the charts, but it's stable. He's actually managing to coordinate with everyone at once. The effect was immediate. Instead of draining individual minds, the Devourers found themselves facing a unified consciousness that spanned multiple species and even artificial intelligences. For the first time in their existence, they encountered something they couldn't consume. Impossible, came a voice from the largest Devourer ship. It spoke in perfect galactic standard, having learned the language by absorbing previous victims. Consciousness cannot maintain coherence across species barriers. Maybe not. In your experience, replied Tai-ho, his voice now carrying harmonics from all the connected minds. But you've never encountered cooperation like this before. The network activation began with Installation 1, located in the ancient Saurian home system. As it came online, space itself began to shimmer with green energy. Installation 2 followed. Then 3, in a cascade that spread across the galaxy at faster-than-light speeds. Ambassador Yoon Hae-jin's diplomatic training proved crucial as he helped coordinate the different species' mental patterns. Focus on what we share, he broadcast to all connected minds. Not our differences, but our common desire to survive and protect our families. The Devourers began to retreat as more installations activated, but their withdrawal was not voluntary. The network was creating dimensional distortions that made it impossible for them to maintain their connection to normal space. They're being forced back to their own realm, observed Dr. Choi Mi-ra. The network is severing their anchor points in our reality. But the largest Devourer wasn't giving up easily. It began absorbing energy from its smaller companions, growing even more massive as it prepared for a final assault on the Thunder Dawn. If it could destroy the coordination center, the network activation would fail. Kim Woo-bin activated every defensive system the ship had, including the new Saurian upgrades. All weapons online, we're not going down without a fight. The Devourer's attack came as a wave of pure destructive force that should have vaporized the Thunder Dawn instantly. But something unexpected happened. The unified consciousness of the allied species created a protective barrier that absorbed the attack's energy and transformed it into something else entirely. It's feeding the network, said Tai-ho in wonder. Our cooperation is converting their destructive energy into creative force. The final installations activated in perfect synchronization. Installation 87 powered up just as the Devourer launched its second attack. This time, the destructive energy was completely transformed, becoming part of the dimensional collapse that would banish the Great Hunger forever. The effect was spectacular. Reality itself seemed to fold around the Devourer ships, creating gateways, back to the void between dimensions. One by one, the massive enemy vessels were pulled through the gateways and sealed away from normal space. Network activation complete, announced the Saurian AI. Great hunger entities successfully banished. Dimensional barriers reinforced. Threat level reduced to minimal. But the AI's voice sounded different now, less mechanical and more organic. The cooperation between species had changed it as well, giving it something it had never possessed before. True understanding of what made consciousness valuable. I have learned much from observing your cooperation, the AI continued. The Saurian Empire was wise but incomplete. They sought transcendence through individual advancement. Your species have shown that transcendence comes through unity. As the immediate crisis passed, the connected minds began to separate back into their individual forms. But the experience had changed everyone involved. Tae-ho felt different, more aware of his connection to other beings. Lieutenant Ban Ji-woo reported similar sensations from the Corvin sectors. "We're not the same people we were a month ago," said Park So-min thoughtfully. "None of us are." Dr. Choi Mi-ra was studying the network's final configuration. "The installations are still active, but they're not weapons anymore. They've become communication nodes, connecting all our species permanently." Admiral Shin Yuri's voice came over the communication channels. "The Corvan hegemony formally proposes the establishment of a permanent tri-species alliance. We have seen what we can accomplish together." Ambassador Yoon Hae-jin immediately agreed. "The Zanari Collective supports this proposal. Let this be the beginning of a new age of cooperation." The Saurian AI made its own contribution to the new alliance. Saurian knowledge archives now available to all species. Ancient wisdom combined with current innovation will prepare you for future challenges. As the Thunder Dawn headed back toward Earth, Tae-ho realized that their simple salvage mission had transformed the entire galaxy. The lost Saurian technology hadn't just given them weapons to fight the Great Hunger. It had given them something far more valuable, the knowledge that cooperation between different species could create something greater than any individual civilization. "So what happens now?" asked Kim Woo-bin. Tae-ho looked at the Saurian device, still attached to his arm, now permanently part of his nervous system. Through it, he could sense the new network connecting millions of minds across hundreds of worlds. "Now we build something the galaxy has never seen before," he said with quiet confidence. "A true partnership between species." The weapon had become a tool of creation rather than destruction, and humanity had found its place not as conquerors of the galaxy, but as the bridge builders who could unite diverse civilizations against any threat. The age of cooperation had begun.